ECU?
Do you bleed purple and gold?
Are you ready to hoist the colors?
Hoist the colors!
It's time for the most in-depth look into the world of ECU athletics. Welcome to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Watch the show live on Facebook
And at 943thegame.com. Here's Stephen Igo.
Welcome in. It is Hoist the Colors, Monday, September 29th edition of the program. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. You can always download the show replays on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also check it out on IVX Media, the app where you can find Hoist the Colors, the Patrick Johnson Show, as well as Talk of the Town and the Logan Zone. Now, you may ask if you're watching our YouTube video stream or any of our video streams, what in the world is in the background? Well, I am broadcasting from downtown Denver, Colorado, going to the Broncos game tonight. So we're on location here. Philip Pilkington is back in the 94.3 The Game studio. He is coming off a pretty horrific loss for his Carolina Panthers on Sunday to the New England Patriots. But, Philip, how you going, man? Hopefully my background is not too distracting for you.
No, it's not too bad. And speaking of the whole sports thing, yesterday was tough, but we got Sox Yankees tomorrow. So I'm good. I'm pumped up. I'm ready. I'm in full baseball mode at this point. It is what it is. Whatever happened with the Panthers happened, and it's over.
Yeah, that's right. And we were talking before the show, like there's nothing like the wild card round and just the drama that goes into a best-of-3 series. You get Red Sox, Yankees. My Seattle Mariners get a bye to the second round, so looking forward to just watching you guys stress out. And I'm just going to enjoy the baseball, which, by the way, shout out to you guys and intern Chris and also Dom, I think will be on tomorrow's program. I will be flying back from Denver. So you guys will not only be doing a segment on ECU where you'll talk about, 3 of the things ECU really needs to improve upon to kind of reach that championship caliber standard that Pirate fans are hoping for, but also you are going to take an in-depth look into the wild card round, specifically not only with the Yankees and Red Sox, but also Gavin Williams, who will be pitching for the Guardians, the ECU angle. So looking forward to that. I know you guys will enjoy that on Tuesday.
We will, and as you mentioned, Gavin and Cleveland will be in action tomorrow. They didn't get the bye like you guys did. We'll mention the Blue Jays as well. They did get the bye. And are you going to be – so you actually, I think, take off like 2 minutes before the show goes on. Little housekeeping meeting going on live show. You and I talked about it, I guess, last week. Are we going to record a phoner in the morning with you before the show to kind of talk about your Broncos experience for an abbreviated segment? Or are we punting on that, or are we deciding that tomorrow morning?
That is up to you. Look, I'm putting you in charge of the show tomorrow. If you want to talk to me over the phone in the morning, I am down to do it. Now, if the Broncos lose, I may be in a bad mood. It may make for a better segment. If they take care of business, maybe a more boring segment. But I'm down to do it. Yeah, even if it's like 5-10 minutes. I mean, we fly out at 9:58 Mountain Time, which, as you said, is 11:58 local in North Carolina. So we could work something out, I'm sure. So maybe we can circle back, see how the night goes.
All
but
right,
I'm looking forward to that.
We'll text about it. Let's hope it's a boring content segment. Let's hope Denver goes out there, wins it by 30, and you're just like, yeah, the atmosphere was great. The food was the same as every other NFL stadium, and I'm ready to get home.
Hopefully Jaquan McMillan of ECU lore has a good night in Power Stadium tonight. All right, we got some comments. As always, the comment section are open. We'll track that over the course of the next hour. We'll get into the theme of today's show here in a minute. But first off, Lane Smith, who is an Eagles fan, says it's Broncos hate week. Yeah, Broncos are at the Eagles this coming Sunday. Well, Lane, let's see if the Broncos can get past the Bengals first. We also have Kenny Curlin says my team played for a tie, and that's a win for the Cowboys. So we could get into that too. Yeah, ties in the NFL. Gosh, it's kind of disgusting, quite honestly. Jake Pollard says, I guess Igo is going crazy and drawing on the walls again. Rohan says, is that a Dr. Seuss-themed hotel room? Terry Long wants to know, Igo, what is your background? All right, so we're staying in the Acoma House, which is in like the art district in downtown Denver. So you can check it out. Each room is a different artist theme. So we decided to settle on this one. It's honestly pretty cool. The view doesn't do it justice. You kind of got to see the whole room. It has a theme to it. So it's pretty sweet, honestly. The Acoma House, if anybody comes to Denver, I highly recommend checking it out. Affordable rates and good location, and cool, unique drawing. So, yes, I have not been drawing on the wall, I promise. It does kind of like Dr. Seuss. I did mention that as well when we walked in. But it's pretty cool. I can't complain. All right, East Carolina football. Preseason expectations versus midseason reality is the theme of today's show because it's always hilarious to me. We spend all off season talking about certain things that we expect to go a certain way. ECU's defense, we don't know what to think. ECU's offense is going to light it up. They're going to carry the team. We're now 5 games in, and so much has, I don't want to say changed, but so much has gone maybe the complete opposite of what we necessarily expected. Some things have gone exactly what we expected, and we'll get into some of that. So feel free to weigh in the comments. What has changed the most for you from your perspective as a fan? Preseason reality or preseason expectations versus midseason realities. We'll start just with the overall arching theme of this team, Philip, and that is, it's got to be just the defense. At this point, I want to say they're ranked top 15 nationally in total defense through 5 games, which is pretty incredible. I know that they have not played the most elite offenses in the world. They also haven't played a bad schedule at all. NC State's offense is good. BYU is solid, even with a freshman quarterback. We know how dynamic they are running the football. Coastal Carolina put up 38 points at South Alabama the week after ECU shut them out. Campbell, look, it's Campbell. But then obviously Army, ECU holds them to 6. They scored 24 on Kansas State. They scored 38 on North Texas. They scored, I think, around 30 on Abilene Christian. So I don't know how you start this conversation without taking a look at the defense, which has quite honestly been incredible compared to preseason expectations.
It's been incredible in the pass defense. I think is what's really been special. We talked about it in the offseason how like the D line. It's like, hey, there's some new faces. However, it's still a Roy Tesh coach defensive line. Like they're probably going to be fine, but are we going to get burnt for home run plays on the outside? Can any of these guys really cover? We do Jamar Lee's a pretty good cover safety, but again, he's a safety. He's not a corner, right? Teagan's decent, but we know in the flats and in the run game is where he is like phenomenal. That's his strengths. And we really knew nothing about the corners, and we were worried. And I would say even after the NC State game, like we weren't necessarily worried, but there were still some long passes. Like, hey, they did a good job still staying with the play and making the tackle and forcing a field goal attempt instead of just getting burnt. But is this going to become the norm? Knock on wood, through 5 games, it hasn't. And, I think the big thing is they know they don't have stars on the defense. They talk about doing their 111th. Well, I think each guy's 111th is equal to somebody else's. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you might have 1 or 2 guys that they wreak havoc and everybody else has just got to not mess up. I feel like here, everybody's still got to not mess up and everybody's going to do their part. And they're doing it. They're not trying to be something they're not.
You mentioned Jamali Riddle, and I pulled up some Pro Football Focus numbers to kind of focus on defensive personnel and just what has gone according to plan and what has been a surprise. So Jamali Riddle leads the defense in snaps, 290 snaps. He also ranks near the top of the defense in overall team grade with a 71.6 grade via Pro Football Focus. Now, if you don't know what that means, essentially PFF grades players 0 to 100. 60 is considered replacement level. 70 is considered good. 80 great. 90 elite. Anything above that, extraordinary. So he is, in that good to great territory. And I think he had one game where he was graded out kind of poorly. Outside of that, he's been excellent every week. His running mate at safety, Teagan Wilk, I think we all expected him, Philip, to be good and dependable. But Teagan has played the 3rd most snaps on defense. He is right behind Rashid Reason at corner, who we can talk about as well, and right behind Jamali Riddle. So 234 snaps for Teagan, 290 for Jamali Riddle, but a 65.1 Pro Football Focus grade for Teagan Wilk. He's 75.2 against the run. Big shock. He ranks 5th on the team in run defense. We all know that he is a player that excels in that aspect. But I would say Teagan, and knock on wood here, I would say Teagan's ability to stay healthy and him leading the secondary has been crucial because I remember when he first committed back in the winter, Philip, we were like, all right, here's a guy who's going to come in on running downs and help out there. But he's been a full-on godsend for this defense because, to be honest, the depth at safety after losing to Demarius Hines is not great. And his first 5 games, I think, have been as key as anybody on that defense.
I think they have. You mentioned he's third in snap counts with 264 or 234. Well, he got ejected in one game and didn't play the final.
That is right, yeah.
So just think of how much higher it would be if that. And look, man, the one thing we always know about Teagan is he had it between the years to be a great football player. This is a young man who is locked in, who wants to be at East Carolina, who wants to be a successful football player and loves playing football. It all came down to he's just not the fastest guy in the world. Therefore, when you're covering somebody who is darn near close, you're going to struggle, right? I think Teagan knows what his weaknesses are, and he's such a high IQ guy. He knows how to make up for his weaknesses, and his weakness is just a straight line speed. He's a pretty darn good athlete, but he's not an extremely fast athlete. And, the kid plays to his strengths, and I think that's what allows him to grade out high in so many of these things. He has very good vision. He sees the football well. He knows what offenses are trying to do to defeat them, and he's a leader on this defense. And people look up to him because of his IQ, because of his character, and I think he's a big reason not only for his own success, but just for the success of this defense because they have a leader like that in Teagan Wilk behind them, identifying things and coaching guys up out there.
Defensively, also wanted to look at the defensive front. Just we didn't know, Philip, many of these guys. We knew J.D. Lampley. We knew that Preston Carr and Zion Wilson had been in the program. We knew Josiah Robinson had been in the program, but he hadn't been able to stay healthy. And just looking at some of their performances to this point, Josiah has played 168 snaps across 5 games, 73.5 PFF grades. Zion Wilson has played 149 snaps, which ranks, I believe, second on the interior defensive line behind Preston Carr. So those two guys have combined for more than 300 snaps. They both have posted above average grades. And it's just kind of crazy. Like some of these names, Julian Davis at outside linebacker is one of the defense's highest graded players as a redshirt sophomore. We talked a lot about Raheem Craig and Kendrick DeJour, but Julian Davis has quietly had an excellent season. Aiden Duncanson's a young safety who's come out of nowhere behind Teagan and Jamarly to play some crucial snaps. At corner, the guy that I honestly didn't expect anything out of is Tymier Brown. I mean, he had been in the program like 3 years, hadn't done much. They bring in all these transfer corners. I don't want to say I wrote them off, but I was very close to it. So, like, a lot of this goes back to just the development of guys within the program too. And it's not only the transfers, but a lot of the names we just mentioned, if not all of them, are guys who have been studying under Blake Harrell for 3-4 years now, waiting for their shot. And you can't really measure that in the preseason, whereas now that they're getting their shot, we're able to see how good they can be.
Yeah, it just shows you, I guess, how deep this team has been in the past. It's just they haven't really had to go in to that depth in some of those rooms, like the corner room or like the outside linebacker room. And, it's a lot of credit to Blake Harrell for the defensive coordinator that he was for this team and his staff. This is a staff who's done a really good job through the ups and downs, pretty much just staying together. You even think back to the like Donnie getting let go, there had been a lot of turnover on the offensive staff, the running backs coach, offensive line coach, and different things there. But, and part of that was obviously due to Shank retiring. But the defensive staff, for the most part, is stayed together over the last few years, or if there's a change, it's one guy each year, it kind of seems like. And, these guys, they were playing under good football or playing behind good football players that showed them how to be great. The thing is, though, it's one thing to know how to do it. It's another thing to go out there and do it. Well, they've gone out there and done it. And, when Jim Szoke comes on our pregame show, one day you and I a couple weeks ago were talking to him about how good everybody is at doing their 111th. And he goes, yeah, but we got 22 starters out there. He said everybody in the 2-deep room he trusts almost as much as he does, or if not as much as he does in the starting room. So I think this is a really good, complete defense. Again, you don't have the superstars, but I guess you don't need them. At the end of the day, if you can go out there and just be good every week, why do you need a superstar?
ECU through 5 games allowing 13.4 points per game. They're giving up just 3.3 yards per rush. They're giving up just 6.3 yards per pass. They're holding teams to 304 yards per game. And I don't know if it's the final thing we get a break in. I don't know if it's because we haven't had the chance to talk to Josh Aldridge since the season started, but I feel like he has not gotten enough credit for how this defense is coming together. Look, we know Blake. We talk to him every single media availability for ECU football now, whereas we're not getting the coordinator. So I feel like in some ways Josh Aldridge has not gotten the recognition he maybe deserves, and maybe he prefers it that way. But, man, he has really called great games. He's putting this thing together with the help of Blake, obviously. But can't say enough about him. Like, my expectations were fairly high for Josh Aldridge in the preseason, but certainly he has surpassed them.
I think he has, and I think he's done a really good job of putting the guys in positions to succeed. For example, let's just go back to the NC State game. They never really rushed C.J. Bailey. They tried to make him uncomfortable, but the focus, you could tell from the defensive line and the linebackers who were going after the quarterback, was stay in your lane and contain him. Don't let him beat you with your legs. And it's going on game after game. He knows the strength of the opponent, and he is forcing his defense to not allow them to use their strengths to beat us. And because of that, certain numbers, like maybe the sack numbers, aren't as high as we want them to be. Or the interceptions, because we're not jumping routes, are not as high as we want them to be. But it's because Josh Aldridge is seeing what other teams are doing successfully, and we're just not allowing them to attempt to do those things against us. And sometimes that hurts you in the statistics department, but it helps you in the overall grand scheme of things. It keeps them from driving down the field.
All right, a lot of comments here about ECU's offense. We'll switch gears and get to that on the other side. We'll also touch on has the performance of not only ECU but its opponents. Has that changed our expectations for the end-of-season record? We'll get into that and so much more over the course of the next 45 minutes. This is Hoist the Colors on a Monday.
The team of Flatlands Jessup is working overtime to help ensure that Eastern North Carolinians like you get the health insurance help you need this open enrollment period. New legislation passed meaning more people than ever qualify for affordable coverage. Let us help you today.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Healthwise Pharmacy rounds the bases with all of your infusion, retail, compounding, and medical equipment needs. Locally owned and operated by pharmacist Marcy Parker, Healthwise has grown to be your most trusted provider for infusion services. Currently providing in-home or on-site infusions in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Visit Healthwise Pharmacy at 615B South Memorial Drive or call 252-295-0059 to speak to a patient service representative to find the option that best suits your needs.
Tired of the 1-800 numbers advertising Medicare products? Flatlands Jessup has 6 offices all throughout Eastern North Carolina. Get face-to-face help from our local award-winning licensed team. Stop by today. Flatlands Jessup, your whole world covered.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers does real burgers better than anybody. And don't forget about the cheese sticks, fresh salads, and more. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, burgers and sports at its best.
Go Pirates! Arg!
In this age of globalization, we've learned that bigger isn't always better. Ever tried to get phone help from a big corporation from a real person? Right. That's what's so nice about Phelps Chevrolet. After more than 50 years serving our community, Phelps remains family-owned and operated. Mike, Daryl, Wave, West, Alan, and Clay deliver hometown service and integrity, same as always. They share your experience, they share your values, and they are ready to help with any motoring need. Come get you one.
All right, welcome back in Hoist the Colors segment 2 here on a Monday edition of the program. The comments section are open on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And if you're just joining us, no, I am not in the middle of Dr. Seuss world. I am in Denver, Colorado, broadcasting live from the Acoma House in downtown Denver, going to the Broncos game later tonight. But right now we're talking ECU football, preseason expectations versus midseason realities for the Pirates. We talked defense in segment 1. We got Philip Pilkington back in the 94.3 The Game studios. Let's talk some offense. We've got a lot of comments on offense, as you would expect, because to be quite honest, it's been the more underwhelming part of the team. And it's not like they've been bad. ECU's offense thus far through 5 games is averaging 30.4 points a game. They're averaging 315 yards passing a game, 141 yards rushing a game, 456 yards per game. It's just like they've struggled in the red zone. They have struggled to consistently score points against good competition. And I don't know. I have trouble evaluating this offense, Philip, because I would say they've definitely underperformed given our preseason expectations, but it's not like they've been bad. So for me, it's consistency and it's red zone. And I know you guys are going to talk about this more tomorrow when you look at the 3 things ECU's got to focus on during the bye. But like, if you just finish drives more, this is a much higher thought of offense. Johnny Stats here in the comments. The Pirates have just not been effective in the red zone, converting 20 of 29 opportunities, and that's no points. 9 opportunities with no points, not just field goals and touchdowns. And he adds that Memphis, North Texas, Tulane, South Florida, Navy, UTS, Temple, and Rice are a combined 131 of 137 in the red zone. So they're moving the ball, just not scoring touchdowns and finishing with points, quite honestly.
No, they're not. You know, you mentioned how much they're averaging a game. I want to remind Pirate fans, there's not been a single game that they have not reached the 400-yard mark offensively. And that includes the NC State game where the first, however many drives, they were at like negative yardage. So the point is, this team can move the football. I think play in and play out, they've been successful. Like you said, though, the glaring weaknesses have been the issue. It's lack of being able to finish, like you said, in the red zone once the field gets condensed, and lack of being able to. Really, it's just the mistakes, I guess, have seemed to always be amplified. Whenever they make them, they're just massive. The interesting thing that I think about this situation is, though, John David Baker has called less of a spread out air raid style offense than he did last year, just between the 20s. It's a lot shorter passes. The offense seems more condensed. We've talked about the lack of shot plays. Therefore, you would think there'd be no issues in the red zone. Because not that you're playing on a condensed field normally, but you're not using the entirety of the field. Normally, teams who struggle in the red zone are teams like the Rams, who have a true air raid style offense where they're so used to having at least one guy 20-plus yards down the field drawing 2 defenders. That's where all my questions come in. Why are we struggling in the red zone when we're calling the same style plays, on the 15 that we're calling on the 35? And it's just not successful.
I think some of it is at times play calling, and some of it's just execution based. And we got a lot of comments about Mike Wright. Corsair says, I thought Mike Wright would be a big addition to the offense this year. He hasn't hardly played at all. I can't understand what they're saving him for because this is his last year of eligibility. Isn't Mike Wright on the fastest 3 players on the team? Yes, he definitely is up there. So people want to see more of Mike Wright. The other guy that just has not been a factor, Philip, that we all expected to be a factor was Jaquez Petaway, the Oklahoma transfer. And he did have his best game with 4 catches on 4 targets against Army, but he has only played 68 snaps through 5 games, which barely double-digit snaps a game, and over the last few weeks has barely played at all. So I don't know. Jaquez Petaway, a lot of that has come at the expense of Brock Spalding, who I want to get into on the other side, has been a revelation as the highest-graded offensive player per Pro Football Focus through 5 games. But, those two guys in particular, Mike Wright and Jaquez Petaway, I think we both thought they would both be a bigger part of the offense than they have been through 5 games.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Wright. Again, I felt like you didn't really have to use him against Campbell or Coastal, because things were going so well. The BYU game, there was no flow offensively. I think it's kind of hard to put in special stuff when you're just trying to control the ball. And then this past game, short week, if you haven't been repping that stuff, how long did you really have to not put it back in, but to perfect it? I wonder with the bye week now, this 7-game stretch, a lot more opportunity to get Mike Wright in. I think we see an increased role for Mike Wright. I really do. Petaway, it was weird how we got him the ball in the first game, and he was unsuccessful, but no fault to his own. It was bad perimeter blocking, and then we just kind of never saw him again. So I don't know if it hurt his confidence, because I don't think just the way those 2 or 3 plays they got the ball in his hands early played out would be totally enough for him to that be the sole reason he falls out of grace with the coaches. But like you said, that paired with the success of Brock Spalding, maybe that's what it is. But 4 catches last week, I think, is an opportunity for him to get going back in the right direction. I don't think he ends up being the leading receiver like we had him being, or leading in receptions, but I do think he is at least a rotational piece that has, 2 or 3 targets a game moving forward.
Cameron says, has an offensive transfer that ECU brought in that is not Mike Wright or a running back scored a touchdown this year? That is correct, Cameron. No receivers that ECU brought in this past offseason have scored a touchdown. So Peyton Mangrum came in from South Carolina. He's got 4 catches for 71 yards. I think he's actually looked good when targeted and when he's got a shot. So he's actually looked good on special teams as well. Had a big hit in the Army game. Tyler Johnson, Penn State transfer, 4 catches, 41 yards through 5 games. And Jaquez Petaway, 8 catches for 26 yards. So, yeah, none of those guys have scored a touchdown. And honestly expected Tyler Johnson to be a bigger part of the offense too, but I think a lot of it does go back to Brock. Philip, you look at it, 210 snaps through 5 games. He has been a receptions machine. 22 catches on 25 targets for an 88% catch rate through 5 games. Obviously, 14.5 yards per catch. He's made contested catches. He's made plays after the catch. And I just think I don't know how you bench him for these other guys with his production rate right now. So, I get it. It is frustrating on one hand. We maybe haven't seen more of the other guys. But, also, if I'm the coaches, I'm going with the guy I trust, and Brock Spalding is number 1 right now amongst those options.
I will say with Johnson, though, he might not have a touchdown, but he's got an assist on one. Because that one J.C. Connor scored, he threw 3 blocks on the same guy, and that guy was way faster than both of them, and he just continued to block the guy legally without holding. So he's got an assist. The interesting thing, yes, I think comes down to the fact that your top 3 guys, we keep saying Brock Spalding, and you're right, because that's kind of that rotating position that you would think, right, the slot. All 3 guys have been what you expect, or if not better in Brock Spalding's situation. So the unfortunate thing is you've got 3 guys that are head and shoulders above everybody else. They're just not going to come out of the game. Receiver is a weird position because it's not an automatic rotation like defensive line, but it's not in no way that you're going to rotate like quarterback or cornerback. And the top 3 have just been what you need them to be. Yeah, there's been a couple drops here and there, but for the most part, they're making blocks on the perimeter. They're catching the football. They're doing a good job. So it's nothing against the other guys, but if the production's not an issue, also, again, we're not throwing the ball as far down the field, and we're not even just running routes as far down the field, whereas last year there was a little more turnover at that receiver position, play in and play out, because guys would get tired. They had deep crossing routes and go routes. They're running so many short, little quick-hitting zone beaters, the guys aren't as tired. It just is what it is. And they don't like to sub. They like to go up-tempo. And if you don't want to sub during the drive, you got to go with who you started with. They're starting with the starting 3.
That is a good point because at times when Anthony Smith runs those go routes, and if he hits it or doesn't hit it, he'll sub out for a Tyler Johnson or another receiver. And we saw more of that in the most recent game, which, again, has been another preseason expectation. I thought this offense would be more explosive than it has been. They've been more steady, I think, than explosive in terms of moving the football, so we can get into that conversation as well. So we did have a comment here I wanted to talk about from Johnny Stats. He says, why do we let opponents only have to defend 10 players? Hauser has not had a 10-yard run this season. Memphis has 15 quarterback runs of 10-plus yards. Tulane 12, and USF has 6. Caton had 2 touchdowns and 85 yards in Annapolis. I don't think it's a lack of effort, Johnny, and I think those are fair points, but I'm looking at the numbers. Caton through 5 games, 30 rushing attempts, not counting sacks. So 5 of those have been scrambles. That's 25 design runs for Caton. That's 5 a game. I mean, for a guy who's not really a rushing quarterback, I think that's a fair number. Now, the results, Phillip, just haven't been there. 2.1 yards per carry, and he does have 2 rushing scores. I just think a lot of it comes down to he's good enough to get positive yardage, but I think the Military Bowl was an anomaly. I just think that's not going to be something you can count on. And 5 rushing attempts from a guy who's not really a great running quarterback compared to the names he mentioned, I think it's fine for what it is.
Yeah, I think it is, and I get what Johnny's saying there, and other Pirate fans have had this question too. And I think it comes down a little bit what we were talking about with it being a lot more quick-hitting routes, right? So I'm not saying we're quite running a West Coast offense, but we're running a hybrid kind of West Coast pro style, whereas last year seemed more like a pro style with a hint of air raid to it. And when you do that and the ball comes out quicker, there's less chance you scramble. Also, there was a little bit more rolling out of the pocket last year as well, where they would try and get the offensive line moving and get him out in the flats to throw on the run. And when you're rolling outside the pocket, there's a lot more opportunity for you to run if there's nothing open downfield. Whereas when you're in the pocket and there's nowhere to go, sometimes you just have to throw the football away. So I think that has a little bit to do with it too. It's just the opportunities aren't there because of the offense and the way the plays are being called. And yeah, I mean, Caton's a pretty good athlete, and maybe we'll see it more throughout the year once they start to open up the playbook a little more. But overall, it's just been kind of conservative play calling.
All right, last thing for me before we get a break in, because we got to talk about overall expectations going forward. I just think the running game and the offensive line play has been a little bit, compared to my preseason expectations, has been a little bit less than what I expected, especially with some starters returning up front. I do think the injury to the center position, Darius Bell has done his best, but I think it has hindered the rest of the offensive line. If you had Carson Jones healthy, you wouldn't have to move some pieces around. Jacob Sacre was another guy who they were expecting to have back who was lost for the year. So, injuries there, but some of the returners have underperformed. The running game hasn't been there. Subpar grades from a blocking perspective for a few of ECU's top offensive linemen through 5 games. So I do think that is something ECU can really hone in during the bye and clean up as well. Anything to add there, Phillip?
Well, I'm going to say I think they've actually exceeded my expectations a little bit when it comes to the passing side of things. Caton's been pretty clean back there. I was a little worried about that coming into the year. And to your point, I felt a little better about the running game. But, we talk about Carson being out. And we run a lot of inside zone. And a lot of times the inside zone, you've got a double team block between the guard and the center, and then one of them has to work up to the linebacker. There's got to be a lot of chemistry there and a very mature center and 2 very mature guards. And I wonder if going back to that injury at center, it's just not quite been there. Now, also, the running backs have got to be patient. And I thought in the BYU game, the running backs were a little more patient in allowing that double team block to then be worked off of and get into the linebacker before they hit the hole. And I think they were a little more impatient against Army, and that was part of the reason we did not see as much success. And this is what made Le'Veon Bell so good. Remember, everybody talked about how patient he was. He really allowed his blocks to develop, and then he would go. And I think they need to watch a little Le'Veon Bell tape, and I know they're not as explosive as him, so it's a little harder to let it happen. That's why he was a top-tier NFL back, and these guys aren't. But they still, some of this is on the running backs as well.
All right, let's get a break in. By the way, one thing, going back to Cameron's question about offensive transfer that has scored a touchdown. I guess Kyler Pearson could count as well since he scored him a fake field goal, but really that's
offensive.
more of I would say he's more of a special teams player, but still it technically counts. All right, let's go. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll talk about has our record prediction changed and as a result of the American. The American looks a little bit different than we expected. Nobody thought North Texas will be undefeated and knocking on the top 25 as well. So we'll get into that discussion on the other side. This is Hoist the Colors on a Monday.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human. About creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leyva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you farm to fork beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to fork beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown. At National Finance, we're all about hometown support, just like ECU football. National Finance helps us win on and off the field. They've got your back when you need it most. Fast, easy personal loans for life's big plays. And just like us, they're committed to Eastern North Carolina. National Finance, proud supporters of ECU athletics. Visit nfcmoney.com for loans as fast as today.
Remember, get the podcast of the show on the IBX Media app or where you get your podcasts.
Got it. You don't have to tell me twice. I remember it exactly.
Steve and Igo and Hoist the Colors on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors on a Monday, September 29th. I'm coming to you from downtown Denver, Colorado. Philip Pilkington back in the 94.3 The Game studios in Greenville. We are talking preseason expectations versus midseason realities for ECU football. A lot has changed since our preseason talks, and I wanted to get more into the big picture at this point. I would say going into the season, Pirate fans were hopeful of potentially contending for an American Conference title, but maybe more so like realistic expectations at that time was, all right, let's get back to a bowl game, 6, 7, maybe 8 wins. And I think just the way the defense is played for the reasons we talk about, Philip, and the way the conference is kind of shaken out to where, yes, there's been some promising developments, South Florida in particular. Tulane has won some big games, but they don't look unbeatable. North Texas has been good, but North Texas and South Florida are not on ECU's schedule. Memphis has been good. ECU gets them at home. And I feel like it's kind of shaping up to be, all right, the Pirates, yes, they dropped a couple of tough non-conference games early, but I'm getting the sense from Pirate fans there's a lot of hope of finding a way to compete for a conference championship. And I'll be honest, I don't think those expectations are out of the realm of possibility. You look at the football power index right now on ESPN, which is not the end-all, be-all, but ECU is rated 55th nationally and as the third best team in the conference. They are behind South Florida, which is 50th, and they're behind Memphis, which is 36th. Tulane is 58th. North Texas is 62nd. All this stuff takes into account who you're playing, how you're playing, the success rate down to down. It measures a lot of different stuff. So I think if you look at it on paper, ECU right now, they're probably underdogs at Tulane and underdogs at home in Memphis. But outside of that, they should be favored in every other game. Not that that means it's going to play out that way, but 8+ wins seems doable, and maybe even more than that.
I'm about to give everybody some bad news.
Don't do it.
Somebody is going to lose one conference game and miss a conference championship game. There's going to come down to some wacky tiebreaker or coin flip or something. If East Carolina takes business in every game that they should, and one of those games is I'm feeling better about than I did at the beginning of the season. We're going to get to that in our next segment or later in this segment. And they go 1-1 against Tulane and Memphis. You will stand a chance to play for a conference championship. You might get host on a tiebreaker because pretty much the way it looks at all those teams we just mentioned, North Texas, the two I just mentioned, and South Florida, everybody pretty much plays two of those. I think maybe one of those teams has to play three of the others, and probably what's going to happen.
We got to mention Navy as well.
Still not sold. Blake Horvath is a returner. They will be in the mix. Brian Newberry's a good coach. I think they'll be in the mix. I wonder how they look down the stretch. Sometimes these academies kind of get beat up, and it gets a little tough for them. But you're right. You're 100% right. But what they could do is they could play spoiler even more so than nothing else is beating one of these teams. So I think there's a good chance. I don't think, first off, I'm going to go on a limb and say nobody runs the table. But there might be 3 one-loss teams. And I'm not 100% sure how they go into all those with tiebreakers, if it's head-to-head or what it is. But I think if we get hosed, we get hosed. We put ourselves in position to be in if we only lose one game the rest of the year. And I think it's a very good possibility, as long as we play to our potential, that we will lose only one game the rest of the year.
And then it's like, as you mentioned, it's going to come out of tiebreakers if that scenario plays out. And a lot of it could depend on who does Memphis play, who do they lose to, who does Tulane play, who do they lose to. Navy, by the way, easy front half of the schedule. They've already beaten VMI, UAB, Tulsa, Rice. They get Air Force, which is obviously the big rivalry game, but a non-conference game. They go to Temple. They get FAU at home, but then their final 5 games at North Texas, at Notre Dame, South Florida, at Memphis, and then the Army-Navy game, which obviously isn't a conference game, but still vital to their program. So they have a brutal final stretch. You got Memphis, which has an interesting schedule as well down the stretch. After they get through Tulsa, UAB, they host South Florida, then they host Tulane, and they go to ECU before playing Navy. So a lot of things could be decided in November with the way the conference slate. It's almost like the conference designed its best teams against its worst teams towards the middle of the league tenure, and then towards the end of the schedule, more so the best first best, which could set up some drama. And if you're ECU, it makes if you can somehow sneak away with this Tulsa or this Tulane game coming up with a win, like it sets up very well with that Memphis game in Greenville in November. Looking ahead, but it's a bye week, we can do it.
I think Tim Pernetti did this on purpose. He needs to find ways to get more eyes on the American. So how is he going to do it? I mean, go back to the day we did the conference preview. We all picked a game. We all picked a different game. We all picked a game that was one of the first 3 weeks of November. The 1st, the 8th, and the 15th are when a majority of these games are going to be played. And it's after a lot of the big SEC rivalries have been played. Look, Texas and Oklahoma will be done. We've already seen Georgia, Alabama. Georgia, Tennessee will have already played. Auburn, Alabama won't have played yet. So what's the big draw? This is where a lot of the SEC and the Big Ten, you're having the bad teams play the good teams. We're doing the opposite. great scheduling by the conference, causes a lot of drama, and good opportunity to get eyes on your product. Kudos.
Cameron says before the season started, I thought 7-5. Now through 5 games, I think if we don't finish with 8-9 wins, it will be disappointing. Kenny says run the table, play for a conference championship. That would be sweet. ECU could be hosting the conference championship in that perspective, or in that scenario. Matthew Dragas says, can you rank the defensive fronts we're going to face? Is Tulane's any good, better than State or BYU? Tulane's defensive front is legit. Tulane's defensive front, I would say, Matthew, is probably the best in the American. Santana Hopper, former App State transfer, he's a game wrecker up front. They also have Harvey Dyson. They've also got a player by the name of Mo Westmoreland, who I know he's been banged up, but when he's healthy, he is a force. So they are very good up front, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. So that'll be an area that ECU will have to play well to have a shot on Thursday night. As I look at the schedule, Philip, is there a game for ECU that, like, going into the season, you had a certain feeling a certain type of way, and now it just looks much more winnable, much more difficult? In some ways, the Army game was that, because I think we all expected the Army to be better, but is there one coming up that kind of fits in that, preseason thought versus now what we think?
UTSA.
I'm the same way.
They're a good team, but their home winning streak has come to an end at the hands of Texas State back in week 2. I thought they squeaked one out against a average Colorado State team last week on the road in Fort Collins. I believe they had a bye this week. And maybe Jeff Traylor gets it together, but they, to me, just look like a 6-7 win football team. And one that's going to be tough on the road, but it was almost like going to the Alamo Dome. Used to be a death sentence. Now it's show up, play your game, prove you're the better football team. You'll win. If you lay an egg, you don't execute, they'll make you pay. You'll lose. But I think if the Pirates play like the Pirates, they stand a dang good chance, whereas before it was like, well, good luck. You might need some things to go your way.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That was a game in the preseason I had as a loss, and right now I think if I had to pick it today, I think ECU is just a better football team. And now look, that is still a long ways away, late November between now and then. But it's a game I like ECU's chances in. I think they match up well. The Tulsa-Temple stretch is a little bit more difficult. I think ECU still, again, are the better football teams in those scenarios, but I think Tulsa looks better than we expected, and I think Temple is a sneaky road game. It always is, but I think even more so with what Casey Killer is doing year one in Philly. So, maybe there's not, outside of Charlotte, and I hate to even say that after the last 2 years, I feel like that's the one game that should be a slam dunk the rest of the way. The rest, I think ECU's got a great shot at in these games outside of Tulane and Memphis, where they're going to have to play really well, but I don't know. It just seems like a manageable back half of the slate either way you slice it.
It does. And TBD maybe on the FAU thing. They show some spurts, and then sometimes they just don't look good, so we'll kind of see what happens. Obviously, we don't see them until the final week of the season. But, yeah, you mentioned the Tulsa and Temple stretch. Tulsa, I think they're just not talented, but for me, for probably since the second or third to last year, Philip Montgomery was the last time I think they looked like a competent team. Now they look like a very much competent, good football team, just with not a lot of talent. And therefore, I think, if you give them the game, they'll happily take it kind of thing. The Temple thing, you mentioned Keeler. I think the Keeler-Evan Simon marriage is a very good one. I think the offense has a lot of flow. I think Simon is growing up, not making as many mistakes as he did a year ago. We saw last year, and he's got the ability to throw the football around the yard a little bit. So, Temple, they're going to try and hit some home run plays on you, and East Carolina's defense being a little passive maybe or a little conservative could be a good thing because I think if you try and go out there and tee off on Temple, he's going to make you pay. So continue to be mature when you face that team.
All right, let's get our final break in. We'll come back. We will wrap up the show, maybe hit on some NFL before we get out of here. I know some people want a Broncos parlay in honor of me attending the Denver game tonight. We'll see if we can come up with something there. This is Hoist the Colors on a Monday.
It's time to soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota. Summer is here with hot deals on a great selection of new Toyotas, like a Corolla, $189 a month, or Tacoma, $279 a month. Soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Daughtridge Gas and Oil has been your dependable propane supplier for 95 years. Their trained technicians can service and properly install all your propane and natural gas appliances. Plus, Daughtridge Gas and Oil is your backyard expert with fire pits, grills, smokers, and more, including quality outdoor furniture at their Greenville Patio and Hearth Shop at 1901 Charles Boulevard. Go by and see the knowledgeable staff at Daughtridge Gas and Oil for propane delivery or call 756-1345.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked to order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
My hair is definitely a reflection of who I am. Wild, fun, fiery for sure.
It just goes with the flow.
Me and my hair, both untamable.
I wear it how I feel.
Feel fearless.
Feel empowered. Look fantastic.
Look fantastic.
Look fantastic. Feel unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
The sun is out, and so are the deals at Greenville Toyota. Soak up the savings on a hot selection of new Toyotas, like a Camry, $229 a month, or RAV4, $289 a month. Soak up the savings at Greenville Toyota.
Live with Steve and Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Hoist the Johnny Roger!
Now, back to Hoist the Colors.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment here of HTC on this Monday. Again, I'm broadcasting from downtown Denver ahead of the Monday Night Football game. Broncos, Bengals. Philip Pilkington back in the 94.3 The Game studios. Philip, we got a couple minutes left. We have some people want us to tell Tim Pernetti to stop scheduling Thursday night games. Well, he said on our interview that's probably not going to happen. It's a great exposure for the conference. You can hear that on the Hoist the Colors podcast channel, by the way, our interview with him. What happened to your Panthers yesterday before we give out any Broncos Bengals parlay?
Had a good start. Missed a couple tackles on play. It was all downhill from there. Thought the offense was a little stagnant, but they still crossed midfield 6 times during the game. Not bad, not bad. You got to get a little better job once you get to the 35-yard line. And the defense was soft, made no adjustments, missed tackles, soft in their coverage. They ran a lot of cover 3 beaters and did nothing to adjust and let up 42 points. That's rough.
Rough loss to the Pats. Should ties in the NFL be banned?
I mean, I want them to, but also, like, we can do play overtime forever. And we can't do, like, something like a shootout like you do in hockey.
Yeah. The whole player safety thing, though, gets lost to me when they keep trying to add extra games. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think the NFL is a little hypocritical there. All right, we got about a minute left. Broncos, Bengals tonight. I think we're all on Broncos. I think it's 7.5 they're favored. The Broncos can't win 1-score games, so they can win 2-score games. I'm on that. Bo Nix, I'm looking at the passing props right now. Bo Nix has been underwhelming to start his second season. I think he gets it together tonight. You can get plus money on over 230 passing yards per DraftKings. So I would roll with that plus a J.K. Dobbins touchdown run. Spread, Bo Nix passing yards, J.K. Dobbins touchdown. Do you have any parlay advice you're willing to throw out there?
I don't know. I think Denver will have a handful of sacks tonight. I think if you can get them, a decent value at over 3 sacks or something like that. Look, this Denver crowd, they don't wait till third down to get up. You're going to learn that tonight. They're tough. They're rowdy, starting on first down. And got a great defensive front. They've got a terrible O-line, and they got a quarterback that still doesn't know how to change protection. We saw that last week in Minnesota. I think you guys tee off on them.
I was trying to find a Jaquan McMillan interception prop. Have not been able to, but he had an interception on Monday Night Football last year against the Browns. That one, so maybe throw some money on that if you find any action there. But we'll see how it goes. Broncos Bengals tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I know we got a lot of questions. I know we addressed most of them, but feel free to keep them coming throughout the week. Again, tomorrow Philip will have it. They'll hit 3 areas ECU must clean up during the bye. Also hit MLB wildcard round preview. And later this week, we'll get into grading every ECU football position 5 games in and also do a transfer portal check-in. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Philip for running the show back home. He'll handle it tomorrow. We'll see you guys 12 noon on Hoist the Colors. See you then.